like, I don't have to do investment banking to really make a lot of money. You know, it's definitely helps to have that background when you want to go into a hedge fund or private equity, but I didn't need to do that to be able to, and that's not my skill set. So I would say the key is be yourself, be honest, be persistent, and if somebody tells you something, do it.
Does money really buy happiness?
No, money does not buy happiness. Absolutely not. I've worked with a lot of very wealthy people and a lot of very miserable people. I think if you don't have the infrastructure behind you, if you don't have the family behind you, I think religion is super important. I think there's a lot of values in your life that you kind of have to play off of. You could have all the money in the world, but you could be the most lonely, miserable person out there. If you love it, you'll do it. If you love something, the money will come.
Right.
I have relationships that I've built over the years that are doing that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jewish Professionals Podcast, the JP Podcast. I'm Hillel Bainach.
And I'm Benjamin Winters, and we're students at Yeshiva University, just looking for some advice.
Our aim is to bring to you Jewish professionals from every industry to learn from their successes and failures, how they grew in their career and Jewish identity, and made a Kiddush Hashem along the way.
We hope you can apply what you learned through the lessons to your own life as they pass the torch to us, the next generation. We can't wait to go along this journey with you. This is the Jewish Professionals Podcast.
Woo! We're back in the studio today, Ben. Beautiful Monday morning out in New York City, the mayoral race.
Coming to its head. What I'm thinking about is like the bad, probably the only negative of the YU schedule is everyone else is getting ready for the Thanksgiving break, and then they're going to get ready to go off for like 5 months, it feels like. And we have like that 1 week of winter break. And the only thing that we have before that is Thanksgiving. So I'm just looking forward, just begging and trying to get
some turkey.
Yeah, trying to get some turkey, trying to get that gravy.
What does Mama Winters whip up in the house?
It's usually actually 1 year I didn't have turkey. I'm not joking. It was crazy.
That's un-American. That is un-American.
We threw a riot.
Well, anyways, so today we have an amazing guest. Ben, tell us a little bit about his career.
Today's guest is none other than Jason Steinmetz, Head of Business Development and Investor Relations at Bryant Street Capital Management. Prior to Bryant Street, Jason spent over a decade at Merrill Lynch, and as made it to Vice President and Senior Financial Advisor. He is a Yeshiva University graduate, familiar with the heights. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Welcome home.
Guys. Absolutely. It's good to be back. I haven't been here in a minute, but it's good.
Coming home.
That Bryant Street merch is looking.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to bring
bad,
us
right?
some. Yeah, nice little
Listen,
logo.
I might have a couple of vests for you guys.
Okay, there
Best.
we go.
We're talking the
There we
sleeveless,
go.
the Patagonia.
Dianu.
No, not Patagonia. I think they're Brooks Brothers, maybe.
Brooks.
That's the new in.
Let me ask you a
That's the
question.
new
If you
in.
go into a meeting and people are wearing these Brooks, but like they're all matching with their Brooks Brothers, does that give them more confidence in the meeting? Why does everyone wear the same thing?
I mean, it's replaced the jackets, I think. I don't know. Before COVID, I was probably wearing a suit and tie every day.
Yeah, now everyone's casual.
I'm never wearing a tie.
Yeah.
The next time I wear a tie is my daughter's wedding, and that's if she asks. So
Other than that, there's no tie going to be there.
I'm not wearing ties. I'm not. I was actually at a black tie event on over the weekend, and I wore a tux, no tie.
Set that tone.
That's it. You know, I'm here. This is what I'm wearing. And, you know, most clients that I've dealt with also in the past couple of years prefer not a suit and tie. I think
They see it as like uptight.
yeah, I think it's more so relaxed. Like my biggest relationship, probably he's in shorts and a t-shirt all day and flip-flops.
It's funny
He
because
just does his own thing.
You have to be a different level of successful though to come in flip flops to a meeting. Right?
Not really. Not these days.
Come on, the toes out.
If your analyst walks in flip flops, what are you saying?
Oh no. Nobody's working in my spot with flip-flops. That would be ridiculous. But listen, when you're the client and you run the relationship, you can wear whatever you want.
It's funny that you mentioned that, like before COVID, that everyone was suit and tie every day. There's so many things that if you look before COVID that we just, I guess, accepted as the norm, that nowadays you think about it, like even now people are starting to get back to the office like 5 days a week. But now you think about it, it's like we were doing that and it was just so normal. And there wasn't like one day I could go on Zoom or this thing couldn't be on Zoom.
People just realize life is not that serious.
Zoom wasn't a thing.
Right.
I mean, you take it for granted now, but it wasn't a thing back then. I mean, I was in the office every single day, 5 days a week. Through COVID, I was in the office 5 days a week.
Right.
I happened to just have twins at the time, so I had 3 children under 3 years old, so I had to go to the office, but I was in every single day.
Right.
Didn't miss a day.
So now you're running, obviously, Bryant Street Capital Management. But bring us back to where you started, your upbringing and how that kind of set the path.
Sure. So for me, I went to Hafter as a kid. K through 12. Was
Loyalist.
never really loyalist. Never much of a student, to be honest with you. My parents always showed up at parent-teachers conferences. I'd always go home and take the report card and pretend like it didn't get sent, and they'd show up at parent-teachers conferences, and, the teachers would go on their rants about me, and my parents knew. My parents were, they understood. I have an older brother that was super academic, so he, I always came in first day. They loved me because of him, and then the last day they, hated my sister 2 years than me, and that was pretty much, my childhood. And then I got to high school, and I was playing basketball in high school, so for me it was I showed up to school so I could play ball, and that was, that was really it. But definitely took a bunch of friends away from that, and took away a lot of what I probably shouldn't have in terms of academics. So when I got to YU, I went to Israel for the year, but when I got to YU, I kind of had to develop a work ethic.
Would you say basketball? Would you say basketball gave you some of that aspect? Like maybe you were training and you were practicing, you want to be better, you want to be like a go-to player?
Yeah, maybe here and there. I think it was back then when I graduated in 2011. So it was, financial crisis in 2008, 2011 was a really tough job market. So all throughout school, you kind of had this in your head that if your grades aren't there, you're not going to get a job, right? You're not going to get into investment banking. You're not going to do all these things. And I didn't know anything. So for me, it was like, I got to go get a job in investment banking, right? We spoke about this. I think it was graduated in 2011, and I reached out to a couple of people, and I was trying to get a job, and I was looking for probably 6 to 10 months to get something. And finally found the job through a friend whose dad was the CEO of the company, and they were hiring me. I think they were paying me $10 an hour to just, really come in and be a sales associate, trading assistant, small broker dealer. And it was the first job in sales that I got. And I'm like, I don't have to do investment banking to really make a lot of money. So, it's definitely helps to have that background when you want to go into a hedge fund or private equity. But I didn't need to do that to be able to, and that's not my skill set. So, I ended up at Tejas Securities. They're no longer around, but they were a super small broker dealer. I sat on the equity desk, the fixed income desk, the options desk. I sat with the head trader of pretty much every desk just because they really didn't have much volume. They didn't have much going on. It was a weird market to kind of be in. And I just learned for a year. And, I was sending resumes out. I was trying to kind of find something in the sales role. Didn't know what I wanted to be. I saw Merrill Lynch was hiring. So I sent them a resume. I actually had a really good contact of mine, a good friend of mine who was an FA as well. Financial advisor, by the way, for everybody out there.
That's the lingo, right?
So he was an FA at, I think he was at Morgan Stanley at the time. And he had mentioned to me that his manager that hired him at Morgan Stanley was now at Merrill Lynch, and I should speak to him. So I reached out, and I set up a meeting with him. And I went into his office, and I happened to be, I guess I was dating a girl that, had some money. It was to do family, and I was, that was what I was going to go sell. And this is going to be easy, right? I'm going to be a financial advisor. You have all these contacts through who you know in my community and everything, and this is going to be super easy.
Doesn't work out that way.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I would. So anyway, I went to go meet Mike Simmons, who was the hiring manager at Merrill, and sat down in his office, looked at me and said, "What's your experience?" And I looked at him and said, "I don't really have any, but this is what I got going on." And he looked at me and was like, "There's no way I'm hiring you. So it's just not going to happen. But what you could do is, go out to Long Island. And there's a guy out there, great dude. His name's Roy Gigi. He's ran the Hewlett office at the time for Merrill. He's like, go speak to Roy. Their office needs revenue more than mine does. I don't need to take any flyers. I can kind of just hire somebody or bring a team over from another firm that's established, and I know what I'm getting. He might need to take a flyer on you." So I went out there, sold myself, put together my network within the community, which 0 of them had become clients. 10, 15 years later, none. And, he hired me. So I ended up leaving Tejas, which was an awesome experience, but a very different one, and ended up joining Merrill Lynch. And I was there for 13 years. I built up a pretty decent sized book of business over the 13 years. Didn't have any clients in the community. I maybe had 1 or 2 clients from the 5 towns.
So everything you thought, like your expectation going in, it was all just didn't pan out.
Zero. I actually moved divisions a number of times within Merrill. I ended up at Merrill Edge, which is their discounted side, because I was going to go be a manager there. I actually took my Series 10, I took the day after my twins were born. So I remember, my kids are basically being bored, and I'm studying muni bonds in the hospital. I'm like, what am I doing? Do I really want to do management? I don't really want to do management, but I have my Series 9 and 10 anyway. So I actually joined the edge side. I was going to pursue that route. And then actually during COVID, I had my biggest relationship kind of just enter my life through a referral. Somebody that had known my business pretty well. And I was actually going into the city every single day through COVID. He wanted to meet in person. We sat down and I built that relationship. And that relationship kind of brought me back to the private wealth side. So I actually moved back to the private wealth side about, I would say, 4 or 5 years ago. I just started growing that relationship and growing my other relationships, and one referral led to another, and I was out there. I was at every networking event. I was probably working as hard as I did when I was 23, 4 or 5 years ago, trying to build this business. And then came this summer I was starting to try to figure out if I really wanted to do this. Decided that I always wanted to be on the hedge fund side, always wanted to be in the alt side.
What brought that moment where you're deciding whether this was the right path after you've done it for so long?
I was going to work every day. I had brought on a really, really good relationship probably at the end of last year, again, through a referral, actually a guy in my minion. So go to shul.
Go to shul.
We've heard that before on this podcast. The best place to go get some networking.
You would be surprised. I was working with him. I didn't have any relationship with him. I wasn't trying to prospect him at all. I wasn't trying to prospect his CEO at all. I was just trying to prospect their equity plan because, my team at Merrill was specializing at the time in corporate equity plans, 401k plans, things like that, which then gets you access to the whole company, right? Because if you're working with them on the 401k side, then you can get, an individual call with the company. And we had gone through a couple of calls with their management team and my management team, and we were starting to go down that road. And he had come over to me on Shabbos morning, just after shul, and said, "Hey, my CEO had a major issue with Citibank. You think you could help him?" I was like, "Absolutely, definitely can help him." We had an account set up.
Did you know if you could help him then, or you're just like, I'll figure it out?
100%. I could. That was my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're putting that kind of money in an account. We can.
Speaking
do
my
anything.
language.
Yeah,
We'll move
exactly.
mountains,
That's
dude.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
For sure I can do it. Like, what am I doing?
That's exactly right. So he actually, we set up a call for Monday. We spoke, and by Thursday there was, probably 9 digits in the account, and that was a huge relationship for me at December. And then over the course of the next 6 months, I was just starting to feel stagnant. I didn't feel like I had that drive to grow like I've done in the past. In that business, it's the hardest business I've ever done in my life. I don't think anything really comes close.
Definitely.
Yeah. You're as good as your last account. And, when, especially in these big companies, there's no room for just sitting around for a month. You even vacations, right? I don't think I had a vacation with my family that was legitimately a vacation without me being on my phone all day.
It's because you're always like following the markets, competitors,
Not
just
exactly.
trying to figure out what.
Yes and no. It's more so I don't trust anyone with my relationships, right? Nobody's going to service my relationships the way I service my relationships. So for me, it was I don't know if they call into the office and need X. I don't know what my assistant's going to tell them. I don't know how they're going to handle that.
Because one bad interaction, you could lose your relationship.
Lose the relationship, right? It's as good as your last conversation, and you're as good as your last account. Wow. And if that relationship walks out the door, you're graded year to year on everything. So I kind of felt myself getting stagnant. I had spoken to a good friend of mine who does what I do at another fund. And I had mentioned to him that I had a couple of relationships that would probably come over to a fund if it's something that I thought about doing. And he said to me, "Listen, we can definitely speak, but you should probably find an emergent manager and go do it there and build it as your own, right? And you can probably create a situation that's more beneficial to you and your family and more based on your production." And they introduced me to Eli Mishan, who I work with now at Bryant Street. He's the fund manager there. We had some great conversations. I love what he's doing. I love his strategy, the way he kind of goes about things. And I think I could bring my relationships there. And that's kind of the story of how I ended up at Bryant Street. And, different business, a lot of big learning curve, a lot of new things that I have to kind of pick up, but we're doing it.
Right. So when you talk about relationships as like the key in FA and at Merrill Lynch, like money is a very sensitive topic, I think, to everyone. When you talk about the relationships, is it both you're being open and transparent about the account and about sort of the financial things and expectations that they have completely? You have to balance that also with like you're checking in on their family, you're checking in like, right, how they're doing. That's sort of how you bring them in and make them more warm, make them trust you more.
Yeah, I mean, it's trust.
Right.
It's full trust. It's and my biggest relationship I've had now for 4 years. I know his family. I know his nieces and nephews. I know he's never been married, but they went on a cruise 2 years ago for his sister's 65th birthday. He invited me. Like that
Right.
that was the first time that I really like kind of got in with that type of trust, right? And I would do anything for him. And I say this to him. I say this to everybody else. He could have $100 million with me, he could have no money with me. If he's in New York, we'll go have a drink, right? I love the guy. He's family at this point in my life. So you have a lot of that. But I had a conversation this morning with somebody who, is very interested in the fund and wants to know more. And I hadn't been able to get in touch with them for about a week. And she just wrote back to me that, there's a sickness in the family they're dealing with. And I wrote back, no problem. Like, best wishes from me, keeping you in the prayers, and we'll talk when you're back, right? It's a long game for a lot of people. You're building these relationships. It's more than money, and people definitely care about their money more than most things, right? But in the past, I think for me at Merrill, it was I'm dealing with 90 to 100% of what you have. Now I'm dealing with 5 to 10% of what you have, and it's a very different conversation. I never prospected in my neighborhood because I didn't have to, but now it's what kind of people are around, and you're trying to help people. You don't have to fully undress somebody to kind of get an investment in my world now, whereas in the past you kind of would.
Interesting. Right. Let's back up into like kind of the theme that I just saw through line, and kind of something we've talked about, Jason, is you're always selling yourself, and you're never scared to be rejected. It seems like
ever. Oh, I've been told so many things.
I was going to say right away at Merrill Lynch, the guy is like, no way I'm hiring you.
You have no idea.
And he took it in stride.
You have no idea what I've been told by some pretty interesting people. But then again, I've met people that I probably never would have met in my life. And, I've through cold calls, right? Like one of my closest contact for years is, he's in Houston, Texas. He owns a professional sports team. And I cold called him one time and spoke to his assistant for 3 months. Didn't even ask to talk to him. And finally got a meeting with him, got on the plane, get an email that he's got to be out of town last minute. So I'm sitting in my seat in, 5C on JetBlue and heading down, or probably wasn't JetBlue, I don't fly there, but Delta, whatever. And I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, he's not going to be there. And
what are you going to do in Houston?
Did the Astros play or something like that?
So it's that may or may not be the team he owns. So anyway, I was going down there, and this was before they were good, but
right. So before the trash cans.
Yeah, exactly. I had a number of other meetings set up in Houston, but like obviously that was the premier one. And I got off the plane. I drove down to Minute Maid. I sent his assistant an email. I said, listen, I'm here. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to put a face to the name. I had spoken to her probably for 3 months. I knew her kids. I knew everything about her. A super sweet woman. I think her name was Linda Sherwood. I'm pretty sure that's what her name was. But anyway, put a face to the name. She's like, you want tickets? I was like, they're garbage. Not really. But I took them, and they were like second row behind the Astros.
That's disrespectful. He owns the team.
They were really bad.
I know, right?
They were really bad. People
really
forget.
bad.
Like, this was like
the year before
15?
Keuchel won the Cy Young. So they were bad.
They still had that thing in the outfield, right? The hump in the outfield.
They were really bad. Really
and he got you second row seats. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, I remember I left in the second inning because I had an event that I had to go to. And, I was walking out, and I saw these 2 Astros fans. I think they had their face painted. I think she was wearing some costume. I was like, you guys want tickets? Like, down by the dugout? They're like, yeah. I mean, I don't think they've been to Minute Maid, let alone, in the lower bowl. But, so, that was a fun story. And ended up meeting him a year later. I sent him another email a year later when they were playing the Yankees in New York, and I met him on the East Side. And I'll never forget it. I was 24 years old. I was wearing my best suit that I owned. I was wearing, I think I bought new shoes for the meeting. I met him at 9 o'clock in the morning in the Westin on 42nd Street. I think that's where they were staying. And I was sitting in the lobby, and I saw him get out of the elevator, and he was wearing, sweatpants shorts with a ripped T-shirt, his hat. He was carrying his binder, and he brought his statements. And for me, it was like, there's nothing I can do for this guy. What am I going to do? He has everything. He owns a baseball team. He owns a hedge fund. He owns a number of different companies. He's the CEO of a freight company. And I'll never forget it. He was sitting on a ton of cash. He had seen zero value in his advisors. I think he was working with UBS at the time, and zero value in his advisors. I think he was kind of just doing what he wanted to do and trade what he wanted to trade. And he would go into the office and tell them what to do. And, he said to me, I'll never forget it. He left the meeting. He said, listen, I love your persistence, right? You're persistent. You're not annoying, which to me was the best compliment you can get.
Tough balance, right?
It's very, very hard. It's a very fine line, because I know a lot of people, in my world or in a lot of different worlds that are just, they don't stop until they get an answer. And you never want to be the guy that somebody just says yes because they want to shut you up. Now, it might work out for you in the short run, but you're never going to build a relationship to where you want it to be.
But you also don't want to be the guy that never tries because he's afraid of.
Correct.
Right.
Well, you miss 100% of the shots
exactly.
you don't take, right?
Exactly.
So I got, he said to me, you're persistent, you're not annoying. Appreciate that. Send me what you have, and maybe we'll open an account one day. And I was a 24-year-old kid. I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? Like, I'm going to get this guy to open an account. And it's now been 12 years. He does not have an account with me. I'm still very in touch with him. I've met a number of people on his team. I speak to him, every probably 6 months to a year. Definitely not annoying. And again, will he ever invest? I have no idea. Maybe, maybe not. I definitely reached out and let him know what I'm doing now. But it's a connection that I never thought I would have. I've met him a couple times in person. We've had some really good meetings, really good conversations. He's been a million different places, and you can learn a ton from him. And, again, it's just added to the contact list, right? So for me, when you're cold calling, and I was making 700 a day probably for 2 or 3 years. 700 calls a day for 2-3 years. Yep. It was, it's a numbers game. Doesn't matter what you say. You just need to make the calls and set up meetings.
It's just so funny because Hill and I off air were literally having a conversation about the importance of like the relationships in terms of wife and kids in your life. But you showed that it's not even like, even from a business perspective, relationships transcend everything. Like you're still talking to this guy 12 years. He hasn't invested $1 in you and you're still investing in him.
And even better, you were talking to his assistant for 3 months.
You got to play the long game. It's a relationship. Everything is relationships. People do business with who they want to do business with.
Right.
It has nothing to do with what you're offering because everybody's offering it.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask, because you have so many wealth managers out there, and everyone wants to invest people's money. Everyone wants to manage people's portfolios. So what is your differentiating factor when you're going to pitch?
Me.
Just you.
It's me. Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, UBS, Fidelity, they're all the same, right? They're all the same. It's what makes you different, right? Why should a client work with you? Why should a person work with you? And that's because at all those other places, you don't get me. I service the hell out of my clients. Anything they need at any point, they will get, just because that's everything, right? They want to know that if they need X dollars, or they need something done, or they need a car loan, they need a house loan, they need anything that in their financial picture that I can possibly help them with, I'll do it. And they'll know that I'll get an answer right away. So again, that goes back to the lack of vacation, right? My wife's a gem, right? She's been dealing with this for the last 10 years, right? We're on a cruise somewhere in the middle of the Caribbean, and I'm answering my phone, and that's it. We're going through a tunnel in Israel, and I gotta, take a call.
You got service in the King David tunnels.
That's it. It's exactly it, right? So it's buy-in from her, but it's buy-in from everybody. It's buy-in from your clients. They understand it, and a lot of them understand boundaries. Some of them don't, right? A lot of the smaller clients want certain things, and they want them when they want them, and they don't really care that you're on vacation.
Will you be picky with those types of clients? Like, it's not worth my time if they're not giving you enough return?
So it's not necessarily the return. It's some of them yes, some of them no, right? A $250,000 client that was with me on day one at Merrill when I had nothing else, you can't just get rid of them. Right. So there were a number of my clients that were with me from day one that I can't just dump because they were with me forever, and there's loyalty to that. But as I got to the end, right, in years 10, 11, 12, 13, I wasn't really taking anything that wasn't, unless you were 27 years old and you had 150,000, 250,000 to play with, I wasn't taking anything really under $500,000 to $1 million, just because it wasn't worth the headaches that come with it. Your biggest clients need you the least, right? Your biggest clients understand different factors, right? The market's down 20%. It's not my fault, right? Everybody's down 20%. It has nothing to do with it, whereas the smaller ones don't understand it, and I get it, right? They need their money a lot more than the bigger ones. So it also goes into personality, right? I've turned down multi-million-dollar accounts because I didn't want to work with the person, right? So sometimes you just don't want to work with somebody, and that's okay. And it's hard because a $5 million account is a really nice account in a wealth management firm. So there's just yes, you can get picky as you get older. When I first started, I would have taken anything. It didn't matter. You could have had $20 sitting around in a checking account. I'll take it, and I'll try to make it 30, 40. That was it. So, but it's a grind. It's exhausting, and you really have to focus on not burning out and staying focused and understanding that the little wins are great, but the best piece of advice I got when I started was never get too high on the good days, never get too low on the bad days. You're going to have a lot of both.
Right.
And I think that is really, really important.
So how do you have the emotional bandwidth, because it's such a relationships-based business, to be able to be the guy for all of these people regarding different size of accounts, and you're their go-to? You said especially with the guys who don't have all the capital that you're overseeing, you're dealing with them through everything. Like emotionally, I mean, to me, that sounds completely draining.
Yeah, it's training. It's a roller coaster for sure. Listen, I think there's always time, right? You always have time. Time is priceless. So you could always get to it. I learned how to be really organized. I think that's something that I didn't have a lot of kind of going through middle school, high school, college. I was kind of a bit all over the place, and I'm probably still a bit all over the place. If you ask my wife, I'm all over the place at home. But, I think in work, I learned to be really, really organized and documenting everything. Firstly, from a protective standpoint, right? Because client's always right. So if there's any kind of dispute or anything like that, right? If it's documented on the conversation, at least you have something to look back to. But even more so, just to remember what we spoke about last time we spoke, because you're speaking to so many people, right? And forget the cold calling days. Even now, right? When I was at Merrill probably last year, I probably had 100 households. So in my book of business, so for me, it was you're speaking to a ton of people on a given week, month, year basis, right? 6 months later, you don't remember the conversation you've had with X. So if it's not documented and it's not organized, it's really hard to kind of keep that relationship going. But, again, I think that's the number one skill, right? Organization, and it is a skill. It's hard. Organization and rejection are probably the two biggest skills I've gotten since doing my job at Merrill, I guess, and now at Bryant Street, right? It's similar, different type of sell, but sales nonetheless. But it's my life. I don't know anything else.
So, you were at big institutions. Obviously, Merrill is a premier fund manager now with Bank of America. But was that a massive transition, a massive risk going to Bryant? Did you see it as a risk?
It's definitely a risk, right? It's a huge risk just because, Bryant Street's more of an emerging fund, which I believe that I can grow it. I think Ellie's done an amazing job at what he's doing over the last 4.5 to 5 years, where when we sat down, we had the conversation and he said to me, I wanted to go through 4 to 5 years of this and I'll know if I should either grow or I should kind of shut this down. And he's done really well. His returns are there. It's definitely sellable, and I believe that, and I believe I have relationships that will come on and grow this with us. And for me, I think the biggest shift was I'm no longer part of corporate America, which is awesome in so many ways.
maybe speak to one or two of the benefits, like just being out on
your own.
Yeah, being out on your own.
I mean, listen, the lack of mandates and the lack of just metrics that you kind of have to hit, or you're getting an email from compliance or your manager, or what's going on, why is this, right? If I have to look at another 8-week pipeline again, or if I have to look at anything like that, but you know what, there is some kind of ownership on this side of things, right? Like this is going to go as far as we go.
Exactly.
Right. And, Merrill will be here probably 30, 40, 50 years from now, whether I'm there or not. And, Bryant Street probably won't be at this point based on where we are. So it's going to go as far as we go. I'm excited about it. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for both of us to kind of grow this, and I think we're doing it the right way. I think there's a lot behind it that goes into being advantageous for certain investors to kind of come into us as opposed to other funds. We have a different strategy a little bit. It's an exciting product for me to be able to go out and sell, but it's a completely different sell. And there was this security working for corporate America, working for Bank of America, right? Like nobody gets fired from Bank of America. It's you can kind of move different departments and find what you really want to do. And you could start as an assistant, become an FA. You can go into management. You can go to business banking. You could be a regular banker. You can go to risk. You can go to tech. There's a million different places because they have 100,000 employees worldwide, right? So there was that sense of security. There was also that sense of, okay, I have a book of business and I know what I'm going to make every year if I don't do anything. So there was that. And, it was a great environment. It was a great company to work for. I would recommend them to anybody, really. My manager, like I said, it's funny actually, because I ended up working for Mike Simmons towards the end. So he wouldn't hire me and I ended up going full circle. And he's still one of my closest contacts to today. It was not easy telling him I had to leave. But yeah, you find great people, you work with great people, and you build a business for years, and it's just different, so.
I know. So now you're kind of going on this. It has this entrepreneurial nature to it, like you guys going out on your own. For someone in college who's deciding between the security of corporate America, but also has a passion project, thinks that there's this real possibility with an idea. They have a friend or two like who's really starting something. How would you advise them going about making that decision in terms of deciding between the safety versus taking a bet on themselves to start off their career?
I will never tell you not to bet on yourself. I think it's, even if you do go, right? So I went to corporate America when I was 23 years old, and I was betting on myself, right? Because it was sales, and I would, like I said, I was as good as my last account. So I was working for corporate America, and they gave me a salary. I guess it was a draw, but I still had to do this myself. I still had to grow this myself, and the second I stopped growing at that level, they're done. Like, you're going to find something else for you. So I will never tell somebody not to bet on themselves. In fact, I think we spoke, and I told Hill, I was, if this is what you want to do and you feel like you can go do it, right? You just need to weigh the negatives and the positives. And if the positives outweigh the negatives, usually one of the major negatives is your income, right? And I think that's important, right? You want to graduate and have something to kind of live and build off, for yourself. But if you can figure that out and work around that negative, the only way you're going to succeed is if you fail. I've failed so much in my life. I've had so many blows that have hit me, and I've just picked up and kept moving forward. And it's the only way to do it. I was at Merrill on the second side of the individual. When I went back about 4 or 5 years ago, I joined my partner, and she was a woman who had been in the business for a number of years. She picked up with her entire team and left overnight. Didn't tell me, and I was just kind of out there by myself for the first time in, I don't know, the first time I actually had a real book of business by myself, nowhere to go. And like I said, picked up the phone and called Mike Simmons. So Mike Simmons was my guy at that point, and he kind of helped me through it. And, I could have folded. I had nothing. I was so lost at that point because she was the entire infrastructure of the team, right? I had my relationships, but she had done all the investing. She had done all these other things. I knew what to do, but it was more so her kind of taking the lead on it. And one day she was gone.
And no forewarning. She just left.
Nope. I picked up the phone that Friday. I texted her. I said, "Can we talk?" And she called me, and we spoke. I told her how I felt. She assured me that I was going to be okay. I told her I don't trust her at all at this point. Right. So your word kind of means nothing to me, and I was kind of left to dry.
She just dipped one day.
Went to so this was to bring it full circle, right? She went to First Republic, and we all, I don't know if you guys know what happened to First Republic, but they went under.
Wow.
So I'm assuming, and I have no idea, but I'm assuming she kind of took a hit on the comp that they had promised her, but I don't know. But she's now at JP Morgan. Yeah, but she left overnight to First Republic. They were paying top dollar at the point for teams. And not only did she do that, she ended up prospecting all of my clients.
Every single
one of them. First thing I did was get on a plane to Florida and meet my biggest relationship. He was on the fence. He wasn't sure what 100% he was going to do. Well, he tells me now he really wasn't. He was just trying to scare me. But that's okay. But he was on the fence, and the first thing I did was go down and meet him and his sister, and promised him that nothing would change. In fact, it would probably get better, and it did. It did. I think I found some guidance in Mike, and he kind of brought me down to his office at the time because I was in Midtown. He was downtown. And then he hooked me up with the team that I eventually ended up joining, and they were a pretty massive team. And yeah, it was a very interesting time in my life.
Can you explain that structure? So at a wealth management firm, right, you're bringing in the relationships, but you said this woman was handling the bulk of the investing. So how does that plan out? What is your day-to-day if you're the relationship guy? Are you still managing the portfolio?
So you're managing the portfolio. Yes and no. I think it's more so when you are in a situation like that, right? So she had her skill set. I had my skill set. She obviously had her own relationships. There was nothing like that. But I would give up a piece of my business to her team.
Okay.
And she would go ahead and manage, all of that, right? She would pay the assistants, so I would have access to her assistants, and I wouldn't have to do a lot of the back end work, but I paid for it, right? I think it's, especially to anybody that's going into wealth management, I think it's a very important thing to know. There's a lot of senior financial advisors that don't have the best intentions, and it's not their fault. It's just how it's worked out for them, right? Because they can bring on a junior guy, and that junior guy can bring in business, but the second he doesn't bring in business and they let go of him, right, whose accounts are those? It's the senior FAs. And if they're handling those relationships, right, so for them, they'll take an investment in you. They'll take some of the business, and a lot of them, not all of them, there are a lot of really good ones out there, but a lot of them will just hope you fail, right? And if you fail, then that business, it was never going to be their business, but now it's theirs. Wow. So you got to be very strategic. It's like a marriage. If you're going to go join a team, it's like a marriage. It's got to work for both sides. But it's also got to be a situation, I think, which is very important. You have to have something to bring to the table as well, right? You don't want to be in a situation where a team hires you to the team and you don't have anything to give. Because when I was going into those negotiations with that partner, I had my biggest relationship. So I came to the table with, this is the client, this is what he brings to the table, and I think this is how we can grow this. So I had some leverage. And I was able to kind of write my own ticket there. But I think from her standpoint, she was looking for a fresh start. I think she thought she can get my relationships because she had been intertwined in them.
She had been talking to them, right?
So I think she thought, we can go here and we can get some of these relationships. And some did go. Some left. When First Republic went under, they all came back. Every single one of them came back.
Who's laughing
they all
now?
Called me, and they all came back, right? So
I'm coming home.
Yeah,
There we go.
that's it. So I was just kind of staying in touch with them. It hurt. It's never fun to lose a relationship, and it doesn't matter the size. So it hurt, and I've lost a bunch of relationships over the years. But it was good to get them back, and again, it taught me a lot about what I kind of wanted and what I was looking for in a partner, in a team, and who I can really trust and who I can't. And from that point on, it's very, very hard to trust people. For me in that business, right? It's just everybody's out for themselves. There's not a lot of loyalty in it, and that's okay. That's just the nature of it because it's sales, and it's we got to get to the next level and we got to get the next account. So it was a trust thing for me, big, and we move forward, and you can't just stay. You got to keep pushing.
So what would you say is the key to getting a prospective client to trust you? People at the start of their careers are building their most formative relationships that they could see really develop them a lot of business in the future. What should someone be doing if they really want to buy into a relationship and have someone buy into them too?
I would say the key is be yourself, be honest, be persistent, and if somebody tells you something, do it. I think there's a lot of people that shy away from, I'm bothering them, or I don't really want to be annoying, but if somebody tells you to call them on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, pick up the phone on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock and call them, right? They told you to do it. So yes, you might be bothering them at that point because they may have 50 other things going on. All they're going to do is tell you, call me later, right? And I'll tell you this, when I was cold calling, I called an office, I think 97 straight days, I think the number was.
Wow.
I called the office 97 straight days. Every time I called, the assistant told me, he's not available, call back tomorrow. So I called back tomorrow. And I think on day 97, I think she said to me, have you not gotten the hint yet? And I said to her, and I'll never forget this, I said to her, you're wasting my time. You told me to call back tomorrow, I'm going to call back. That's my business. It's on my calendar every single day. I'm going to call back. You told me to call back tomorrow. If he doesn't want to speak to me or he's not interested or that, you're doing me a disservice by telling me to call back tomorrow. You're just wasting my time the same way you feel I'm wasting his. So respect your own time, I think it's very important. You feel like when you're growing this business that, people are just doing you a favor by speaking to you. You have to show them value that you're doing them a favor by having them speak to you.
Right.
And since I've left Merrill, I've had a number of meetings with different people that are making a lot of money and don't have an advisor, and they've just never had that conversation.
Wow.
Right? They just never had the conversation. And now for me, it's a much easier sell. It's like, well, I can introduce you to a good friend of mine that does it, right? Because I don't do it anymore. And a lot of these people don't understand that they're hurting themselves. A lot of these people don't understand that, my job as an advisor was really disciplining you, not really, it's not about returns. Everybody can get the returns. It's not about that. It's about the service. It's about having somebody to call when you need something. It's, some of the value is not selling when you feel like you want to sell because you shouldn't sell. Right? Investing is very emotional. So market goes down 20%. People's first instinct is to sell.
Right.
Why? Everything's 20% off, right? Yeah, I get you own it, but you should be buying in more, especially if it has nothing to do with the company, right? If Apple comes out with an iPhone and it flops and the company's down 20%, okay, now we have a different conversation. But if Apple's down 20% because tariffs are, higher right now, and those will probably go away at some point, or it's has nothing to do with the direct business to Apple, you're just getting Apple 20% off from where it was yesterday.
Right.
Why wouldn't you buy more?
Right.
People don't see it that way. So, a lot of people that invest on their own just don't get that part of it. So they end up speaking to somebody and they'll call and, should I do this? And I think we should sit tight. I think we should hang in there. I had a client that was looking to retire like 3 months from the conversation we were having, and she was freaking out about the Trump tariffs. Like, she was going crazy. How can I retire? And she called me a month later. She's like, I'm so happy you told me to stay invested because everything's back up now and we're good and I can retire. I was like, I told you, it's, you're freaking out short term, and I know it's short term because I know you're trying to retire now, but sometimes there's a little patience because it has nothing to do with your portfolio.
So that's the biggest difference between what you were doing before is that it's more of a full service, complete portfolio management. While now you're just managing, like you said, 5 to 10% of their wealth.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So before I was building a financial plan for you,
Got
right? So you are, let's say, a partner at a law firm. You have $5 million in liquidity, right? How do I make your $5 million grow for you so that you never have to worry about it, right? How do we make sure that you're not paying a ton of taxes when you want to do certain things, right? How do we're building your entire picture around the $5 million that you have. And now it's, you have that relationship, but we can offer you something to offset that portfolio. That's a little bit special as to, our strategy, which is different, right? We're not going to give you the Teslas and the Googles and the Apples and the, all those. We're going to give you the smaller companies that we're doing research on. We're building relationships with their management teams. We're understanding their business process. Are they buying a company? Are they selling a company? Are they going through a management change, right? We're looking at all those things for you, and we're trying to maximize your returns over the 3 to 5 years.
Is that almost like insider trading if you're in touch with business executives figuring out their next moves?
Well, we're not operating on any information that isn't public.
You're just looking deeper than what people usually look for.
If I know, right? So if I'm speaking to a CEO of a company, right, and he's giving me any information that is public, right? So we'll connect with them after their earnings reports, and we'll get on a call with them, and we'll pretty much discuss the earnings, right? And we'll discuss what they have going on and what they've announced and why they've announced it and all these other things. We're not operating on any inside information. We're just operating on what they're telling us, but we have a relationship with them and we can understand their vision for the business, right? So if I know you and I know you're running a business and the product is okay or not, right? But I know you're a superstar, I'm all in.
Right.
I have a really good friend of mine who's in VC, and he just joined a partnership at a VC firm, and he said to me, the product could be amazing and the CEO could be subpar, and we would never invest, right? It's not the product, it's who's driving the product. So, they're looking for people behind it. So I think the management team is very important. I think what they do can really change a business. And if they get it right, it could skyrocket. If they get it wrong, it could be a disaster.
Right. And ultimately, you're dealing with super high net worth individuals, right? And people would say they made it. Do you see a common theme? Do you think, does money really buy happiness?
No, money does not buy happiness. Absolutely not. I've worked with a lot of very wealthy people. A lot of very wealthy people and a lot of very miserable people. I think if you don't have the infrastructure behind you, I think if you don't have the family behind you, I think religion is super important. I think there's a lot of values in your life that you kind of have to play off of. You could have all the money in the world, but you could be the most lonely, miserable person out there. I would say in the world that I'm in now, most of the people I'm speaking to, I'm not really building the relationships as deep as I did in the past. So I don't know a lot of their personal lives, but when I was at Merrill, I had clients that were miserable, absolutely miserable, and not bad people. They were great people. They were miserable. They were not happy in life. They had a ton of money. They can go anywhere. They can do anything. They can, spend on whatever they want to spend on. But, I had one that said to me, I'll never forget it. She said to me, I want to spend all my money. I said, well, what about your kids? She's like, my kids will work for themselves. Why should I leave my money to their kids? To my kids. I said, isn't that, like, for me, I go to work every day because I want to make sure my kids never have to worry about it, right? So, and she said to me, she's like, no, they'll work. And I said to myself, I would love to know what that relationship looks like. Right. It's like, there was another one, actually. I worked with the beneficiaries of an estate, right? The woman had died, and she left $100 to each of her kids. $100 to each of her kids, and she left $2.5 million to like 12 different charities. And one of the charities was my client. And she said her kids never cared about her. Her kids never called her. Her kids never.
Terrible.
She left $100 to each, and that's worse than getting zero.
Yeah,
just give me zero. $100, right? So and that was true story.
Wow.
They were like excavating things in Egypt, I think, and it was really interesting, like charity and business, right. But. They were the beneficiaries, and she was one of their donors, and she left them, $2.5 million when she died.
Hopefully they found some artifacts
to justify that. I don't even know if you could dig up Cleopatra if that even.
They're in the pyramids.
I don't know.
So, as a pseudo, I'd say financial therapist, what have you seen even with your clients that do have the biggest accounts? Like, what have made them? It's not just their money and everything. What do they say? At least gives them. Is it their kids, their family? It's their other ambitions.
I mean, I'll tell you this. It's hard for me to tell you that because my two biggest relationships are single and never been married when I was at Merrill. But no, I think it's certainly relationships. It's certainly work ethic. It's certainly understanding that everything kind of happens for a reason. Like I said, never get too low on the bad days. Never get too high, never get too high on the good days because you're going to have a lot of both. Life is a grind, and I think you have to find the people around you to support you in that. So it's definitely important, but there's a lot of luck that goes into this too, right? Right spot, right time. It's understanding what you're doing, always looking to learn, right? My biggest relationship was he knows everything about everything, and he's always reading, and he's always looking into things, and he's always trying to better himself in his industry. When I can tell you right now, and I think he would agree with me, there's nobody that knows his industry better than he does. And the top competitors set up calls with him just for him to explain to them what's going on. So, but he's learning every day.
That's interesting. I mean, you said work ethic kind of in the realm of happiness. I saw this video from Donald Trump literally yesterday, and it's like him giving a speech. And he says, there's so much anxiety and depression in the world today. What I would tell them is just work harder. Work harder. If you're working so hard, you won't even realize that you're depressed.
Yeah, you don't have time to be depressed.
Donald Goggins.
That's it.
You think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, if you're super busy, you don't have time, right?
But is that true happiness? If you're just busy, you're not even thinking about what you feel, or is it that chasing after your goals creates happiness internally?
Well, it depends what you're doing, right? If you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So for me, I love what I do now. I don't know if I loved what I did at Merrill. So for me, I probably worked harder than most people just because you never felt like you were doing enough, right? So you're performance-based. You never feel like you're doing enough. So if you do what you love, is that not happiness? You get to wake up every single day and do something you love.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the question is because, like you said, you didn't always do what you love. So there's a mix between just going, I'm going to do what I love, I'm going to jump in, or I'm going to do what I don't love to eventually be able to do what I love, right?
So I had that conversation with my brother probably 4 or 5 years ago. My brother's a partner at a law firm. He was clerking. He wanted to be a judge. He always wanted to be a judge. And I don't know what you guys know about that industry, but a partner at a top law firm makes a lot of money, and a judge doesn't make a lot of money. So, he has 4 kids, and I told him, I said, why don't you just work your ass off, go be a partner at a law firm for 5 years and make a ton of money, and then go do what you love. And, again, it's not so simple at that point because you're making a lot of money. And it's not so easy to just leave, right?
Handcuff.
But, I think everything is timing. I think, again, you need that support system behind you, right? Like I couldn't just leave Merrill and join Bryant Street if my wife wasn't all in on it and understood that, like, there's certain things that might have to change a little bit in the short term, but understanding that if I do this and when I do this the right way and we grow it and, it's going to be exponentially better than it would have been at Merrill 10 years from now, right? 10 years from now at Bryant Street, doing this the right way, which we will do it the right way, but my financial picture will be exponentially better than it would have been at Merrill 10 years from now had I stayed. And I think that's, it's finding the happy medium. My kids are still young, so I could still do it, right? I could take that risk. If my kids were, in middle school, high school, I don't know if I can just, pick up and leave and, take a pay cut to go do something that I love to do because I think it'll be exponentially better 10 years from now. I don't know. It's all timing.
Right.
Wow.
I think that, like, just to harp on what you were saying before about working hard, like nowadays we have more time than any society has ever had. And we obviously have the most depression rates because I guess people aren't a little bit like putting their head down and just trying to work through it because there is maybe some of this over analyzing and this over questioning, which can lead to a lot of good things, but also leaves you with a lot more doubt. A lot of the non-religious people in the world are also really, really depressed because they don't have something that's like centering them. But just on that, also on the other aspect, you love what you do. You don't work a day of your life, but it takes time to get there. Like you have to go through something that's arduous, that's difficult, that's hard, that it's hard to see over that when you're in the middle of it, that you're getting to somewhere.
If you love it, you'll do it. If you love something, the money will come. Right. And I have relationships that I've built over the years that are doing that, right? And it's taken them time. It's taken them years. It really is just they took a job that there was really no money in, and they love it, and they put their heart and soul into it because they love it so much, and they figured out how to monetize it and make money, right? I have a cousin of mine, I actually just spoke to him last week. I think he sells art in upstate New York, and he was one of these guys that would, travel around the world and, live in a place for 2 months and get some ridiculous jobs so he can tour this, country and figure it all out. And then he would pick up and move somewhere else. And, he loved it, but he made it work. Right. And not everybody needs to, live in the 5 towns or live in Teaneck and drive a $150,000 car and, buy a mansion, or not everybody needs that in life. Right. And this comes back to, does it buy happiness? I don't think it does. I think people can be very content living very modest lives. I know it's hard to see it sometimes because of the community that we live in. In fact, I had a conversation with a client of mine last year because he had asked me why it's so difficult living in the Jewish community and certain things. And I told him, when you back to what you said, right, with the community aspect of it, when you live in the non-Jewish world, right, there are communities. If you have money, you're living amongst people with money, right? If you don't have money, you're probably not living amongst people with money. In our community, I could be living next to a billionaire, right? And I have nothing. Yeah. So, but we all go to the same shul because I got to live near a shul and I got to live near a school. So there's no kind of grouping into your economic status where there is in the non-Jewish community. It gets difficult, and there's a lot of competition that comes from that, right? I think a lot of people end up living beyond their means. But if you can ground yourself and you can kind of be stable in your own mind and in your own life and be happy within yourself and what you have, you can really, really do well without living this lavish, crazy life. Right. That's, I think, the biggest downside to social media. I don't have social media. I have X, Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. But, if I can give a piece of advice to anybody out there right now, I would get off Instagram. Yeah. Right? Because everybody's life looks glamorous and perfect on Instagram, and then they finish the picture and they turn around and start yelling at each other. I would love to go on some of these vacations too. But you have no idea what they're going through in their own personal life. So Instagram is a perfect vision of themselves. So I would get off Instagram. I'd get off all that other stuff. It's nonsense. It doesn't pay your bills. It doesn't do anything for you career-wise. It's irrelevant, and you waste a ton of time on there just scrolling.
That's true. Yeah. Where do you see Bryant Street going from here? In 10, 15 years, you're looking back, what do you hope?
My goal is that we're a $500 million to $1 billion fund, and we're continuing to grow our current LPs, and we're bringing on new LPs and getting the word out there and having different conversations and figuring it out, right? Our strategy is scalable, so we can scale at 30 million, 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion. Right? It doesn't really matter how much money we have. There's plenty of room to kind of get involved. So yeah, it's just to grow every day. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Well, you got the merch right, so that's definitely one step in the right direction.
We like to
ask this question to everyone. What's one skill or experience from your industry, either at Bryant Street or in FA, that you think applies to all other industries?
That's a very good question. I would say, I don't know how much of a skill it is, but it's finding time for yourself and getting away. I think is very, very important, and having time to kind of reset. Non-Jews in my world and everybody's world do not understand how unbelievable Shabbos is. And I think growing up, you don't get it either because I can't use my phone, I can't watch it. Shabbos is the greatest day ever. And I tell people all the time, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, keep Shabbos or not keep Shabbos, turn your phone off for 25 hours and just reset your mind. And if you can do that, you will feel so much better. So I think getting away, taking time to kind of let yourself think, reset, relax. I'm talking to people all day. I am exhausted at the end of the day. And who feels that? My wife, right? Because I come home and I don't want to talk to my wife, right? I don't want to talk to my kids. Right. So I've been speaking to people all day. So all I want to do is just kind of sit on the couch and just shut down and watch the game. But, there's that happy medium there that you kind of have to just make sure that you're going through it. But if you can find yourself, and it could be an hour a day, it could be 2 hours a day of just resetting and understanding that, tomorrow is coming regardless of whether you want it to or not, hopefully, then, you have to really be mentally relaxed and understand that if you're stressed, everybody can feed off that. Everybody feeds off that.
That's great.
So I think it's really important.
That's amazing.
And do you have, Jason, any final takeaways as a Jewish professional for the audience?
Yeah, I think, listen, I wouldn't be where I am without my relationships. And yes, I know I'm in a relationship-based business, but I think the common denominator for, everybody that you've had on and everybody you hope to have on and anybody in these worlds, and I think why us as Jews are super successful and get to where we need to get to or where we are is because of who we know. And whether that means, money in your pocket or not, I think it's more access, right? If you need a doctor's appointment, you could probably figure out how to get involved in an office in the next 2 days where it could take somebody 3 to 6 months, right? We take care of our own, and I think never be scared to reach out to somebody. You know, I understand the struggles that you guys kind of have coming out of school. It's not easy. It's a scary world out there, but there's a lot of people that you can reach out to that were in your shoes. I was one of them. And like I said, it took me probably 10 months to find a job. So utilize your relationships, keep reaching out to people, keep doing your thing. And, you know, there's always somebody that's willing to help. A lot might not. A lot might just blow off your email. Sometimes they don't see it. Sometimes they don't get back. But there are plenty of people out there that are willing to help, and they're in very senior positions and very, you know, successful people. So just kind of keep going for it. I think if you want something, go do it. And, you know, if you're going to want it bad enough, you're never going to fail at it.
That's great.
It's awesome. I think we're going to amend the statement to you miss 97. What is it? Shots you don't take. When that story. With that, I can't forget that. You hit her with the Uno reverse. You're wasting my time.
They were. You know, listen, all she had to say was he's not interested. And I would have taken him off my list.
Yeah.
It would have saved me. It would have saved me
97
probably
phone calls.
45 seconds a day for 97 days, right? 96 days.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's very important because I think they just sometimes somebody just doesn't want you to be upset. It's like, you're not upsetting me, right? You could tell me to, you know, take a hike, right? You were going to tell anybody to take a hike. If CVS called to tell you that your prescription was ready, you're in the mood right now, you're going to tell them to take a hike. It has nothing to do with me, right? So,
exactly.
you know.
You didn't think they were going to respond, call 96. Yeah, this is the one. Like,
No, I spoke to them every day. I spoke to her every single day. He's not around, call back tomorrow. So I called back tomorrow. They told me to call, I'm going to call, right? So, you know, but it's the discipline of it. And I think just understanding, right, that I was talking to it's funny, just last story, I was talking to a guy at Merrill who was doing the same business as I was. And I said to him, what's your craziest thing? And he said to me, there was one time one of the prospects that I was trying to call had sent 500 pies of pizza to the office, not paid for, because I had pissed them off in some way or shape.
That's outrageous.
And my branch manager had to end up signing and paying for 500 pies of pizza. So
500.
500 pies of pizza.
You could feed a half of New York. Give Mom Donnie those pizzas. Huh?
Right, exactly.
I'm thinking of a
So-
fantasy football punishment. That's like something you got to
Exactly.
take those down.
Exactly. So, you know, again, you get some crazy stuff. It's all part of the fun. As long as you can laugh at it and just move forward, you cannot take it personally. If you take it personally, you're never gonna do it.
Thank
That's
you so
amazing.
much.
It's
Jason.
my pleasure, guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. You know, wish you guys the best, and if I could help you in any way, let me know.
Really appreciate it, Jason. Thanks so much. Thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to JB. And thank you to Ashley, the team behind the podcast. Thank you to our listeners. You guys are the ones that drive the podcast. We'll see you on the next one.